Welcome back to New York Talk, episode 154. I'm your host, Elyse DeLucci. Welcome to my living room. It's a rainy New York City early morning. We are here. I am all disheveled. I feel like I say that to you a lot when this podcast starts. No, this morning I really am because, here's the thing, okay? Before I even get into fact of the day, first of all, you should see me right now. I'm like a lunatic. I'm like sitting at the edge of my seat talking into the camera as if I'm in your face about to tell you something insane. Like, it is not easy being a mom with 2 kids and having a dog and doing it all on your own, okay? Because this dog, don't get me wrong, we love Elmo. He has changed our lives. But really, the early morning walks, and I paid for this expensive trainer. I'll give you the name just in case you're in Manhattan and you're curious, or you want to try to use him, because he really is fabulous. But the dog is slightly regressing. And so, I had him on the schedule where his first walk was at 7 a.m. And this morning, little man wakes up at 5 in the morning. And, when you live in an apartment, you can't have the dog barking. So I didn't have one of those collars on him, like an e-collar, where I could just push it and whatever. So I had to get up and walk him. It was either that or I have 10,000 notes under my door for my whole building. So forget it. Anyway, having a day. And fact of the day, by the way, insomnia is a normal process of grieving. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And if you take a sleeping pill when you can't sleep, it disrupts your pattern of sleeping. So it's so interesting. And how I even found that out, which by the way has nothing to do with my dog walking story and that I'm all disheveled and my hair looks like a wet poodle, walking the wet poodle. It has nothing to do with anything. I was thinking about recently how I got so burned out in my life. And I did a couple of Instagram posts about it, right? And it's not something I talk about. So, wait, hold on. Somebody's texting me. I shouldn't even have my phone like this. Oh, it's my mom. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I'll deal with that later. I got so burned out. It's not something that I talk about publicly often. And when I say publicly, I don't really mean the podcast. The podcast, I talk about things that I don't normally talk about on stage, obviously, on social media, because it's more of an intimate thing. I think this is also why I've avoided getting a podcast studio for so long, even though it would be much easier on me. The lighting would be better. I'd be able to post the whole podcast videos on YouTube, more clips. It would be more professional, and I really should. But the fact that I have it in my home, and I could do it in work clothes or in my pajamas or at 4 a.m, whenever, it allows me to be so ridiculously comfortable with you guys that are listening, right? So, podcast aside for a second, because I know you know a bit of, obviously, the burnout that I've experienced here and there, but I don't talk on social media because when I was in low points in my life, I wanted to have people to talk to. I wanted to have, people that I could relate to. And so someone on social media, sure, if they could relate to me and they were saying that kind of thing, great. But I also wanted to escape, So when I put out content, I don't think too much about it, to be quite honest. I'm not somebody that's sitting there and writing out my ideas. I just do. It's just more stream of consciousness. Even the words that I do, my New York Talk word of the day, these are words that are in my vernacular, in my head. Do I use them all the time? Sometimes absolutely not. Do I use for puts all the time? No. But do I use Michigas? Probably 5 times a week. But the things that I do on social, I don't plan much about, and I also try to keep them light, right? So I was thinking maybe I should peel back the curtain a bit more, and I should talk about some of the things that I went through in my real life, my burnout, having a nervous breakdown, a midlife crisis, whatever. And in that time of my life, I was not sleeping. I absolutely was not sleeping. And it started in 2017, right? I would say maybe like late 2016, but it really started in 2017. I could not fall asleep at night. And so I was doing all this like, why wasn't I sleeping? Da, da, da. And I read this fact that insomnia is a normal part of grieving. And I had no idea that if you're so sad, like my father died in 2017 and he was estranged. And I just didn't sleep. I literally did not sleep. I was up. I sat on the couch till 2, 3 in the morning. I didn't take sleeping pills, like proper sleeping pills, but I tried melatonin. I probably even talked about it on the podcast at some point, like melatonin. I had these like they weren't gummy chews. They were almost like a chalky chew, like a Flintstone vitamin. And I found them. They were on Amazon, and I think I also would find them occasionally at Walmart or whatever. They were like the only ones that were yummy tasting. If you ever want the name, just let me know and I'll like look in my cabinet. And I'll get it to you, like DM me or something. But I wasn't sleeping. So I would take the melatonin chews and I would get up and I would be all groggy and all tired and I just had no idea why. Anyway, so I was doing all this research and reading, blah, blah. That was a very long-winded reason why I'm telling you this fact to the day. But I also didn't know, one of the things I read is that if it takes you less than 5 minutes to fall asleep at night, less than 5 minutes. So if you hit the pillow and you're right out, you are probably sleep deprived. But if it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to fall asleep, that's normal, and you're falling asleep at the normal pace, like the normal time. And anything further than that, like, you start to get overtired and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I had a therapist tell me years ago, like looking at the screen, which we all do, is horrible because not only obviously does it keep you awake, it's not only mental stimulation, our conscious mental stimulation, and we want to keep scrolling, the scroll of death. It's also the lights on the phone. It signals the brain to stay awake. So it's like it not only consciously keeps you awake because the content's, engaging and bingeable, snackable, whatever you want to call it. It's the fact that it's just genuinely keeping your body awake. Anyway, okay. So I think my sister, my middle sister, she like swears by like melatonin gummies, but I don't. I feel like it. For me, when I took those melatonin things, it defeated the purpose of like having a restful sleep. So I was in the gym. I go to a gym on the Upper East Side, and I would be mortified, by the way, if any of you saw me in there and you were like, because I take a shower at the gym after, they have nice showers and whatever. After I get done working out, I take a quick shower. I go super early in the morning. I take a shower at the gym and I blow out my hair and da-da-da. And I'm in that phase of doing that right now. And the reason why is just simply because it saves time. And anything I could do to save time in my day, I do to be more efficient. Like, it sounds insane, but me walking from the gym back to my house and then having to shower and da-da-da, it's just ridiculous. Bang it out, whatever. So I was doing my hair the other day and I heard 2 girls next to me and they were talking about taking magnesium. And they were like, have you taken magnesium for sleep? Because I heard it's like the main thing. And I like made a mental note and I came home and I was like, gotta look that up. But yeah, I didn't do my research on it yet, but I just figured I would share. Yeah. So anyway, on the Elmo note, what a doll this baby dog is. But, he was going out, just so you know, 4 or 5 times a day. I would go out, I would do what I gotta do, wherever I had to be during the day, and I would have to bring him to a daycare. I can't have a dog walker right now, but I don't want someone coming to my house. I'm not into that. People like, I got a dog walker. You gonna give a stranger your keys? What? They're gonna let themselves in your apartment? Oh, and they're just gonna take the dog. Give me a break. I was raised differently. I'm trying to train my brain to not be thinking such horrible things, but giving away the keys to a stranger that is saying they're a dog walker, I'm sure they're really a dog walker, and I'm sure they're a very kind person, but that's just not really how I grew up. Okay, so that's not, I need to really work on that. But hiring a complete stranger and saying, you know what, I'm gonna be out in the office for the day. Take my keys, come in, get my little fur baby. Help yourself to whatever you want. You want to drink, there's bottled water in the fridge. Like, what are you, nuts? Yeah, why don't you go help yourself to a pair of diamond studs while you're at it too? Absolutely not. So anyway, I'm not doing the dog walker is what I'm telling you. So I was taking him to this daycare, and then I thought, enough is enough. I gotta get this little guy trained. So this guy on the Upper East Side, everybody swears by, his name is Chris Abel, Abel. He doesn't even have a website, but if you Google him enough, he comes up, and he's literally like the dog whisperer. And he took Elmo for 2.5 weeks, and he just got him on a schedule, right? Dog goes out just 3 times a day. Got him barking, no more anxiety. I could leave him home for a few hours. Oh my God, life-changing. But he did have a little regression. And what I need to say about that is, no matter how much your kid's begging you for a dog, just know you will be the one to take care of it. Okay, that's all. My daughters on their face, they're like, oh mommy, it's going to change our lives. It's like, yeah, please, can we get a puppy? It was like, when I was totally sold on the idea, and I don't regret it, but it takes up a lot of freaking work, right? I'll never forget when I walked into my home, my building, a couple of weeks after I got the dog. One of my doormen was like, oh, you tied yourself up. And I'm just like, mind your own business. You know what I'm saying? Mind your own. Anyway, okay, so, yeah, went to this place, BT Dubs. If you are needing a place in New York City to go, and you're in the Union Square area, right? And you want a cup of coffee, a cute coffee place, a meeting place, I found the most adorable place just the other day. It's called Ariston Cafe, Ariston. This is not, I almost didn't even mention this because it's really a passerby place. If you were on the street and you saw it, you'd be like, what is she recommending this for? Let me tell you. I was dying for a cup of coffee. I was in 14th. I was 13th and 5th-ish. 13th Street, 5th Avenue-ish. Didn't want to go into Union Square proper. Too much of a zoo. They had the green market going on. Yes, I like the green market. Yes, it's overpriced. Yes, if you're a tourist, I think you should go. I think it's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Yes, you can get something to eat there and the whole thing. But for me, what am I doing? I don't need to go in there. So all I wanted was a cup of coffee, and I wanted to sit down, and I wanted to do some work for 15 minutes before I had to go into a doctor's appointment. And I found this place, and it's a flower shop, and they had a chalkboard sign outside, and it said, well, we're a garden and flower shop. We also have a cafe. So I walk in, and, it's this long, narrow place, and there's all these gorgeous flowers, in bloom, and there's people making bouquets, and, and they're selling, tchotchkes, and then you walk in the back, and it's a full-on cafe, and I swear to God, the coffees and the pastries that they had were so great. They had really they had this, and I'm not eating this stuff because I'm still doing keto, of course, which is a whole nother, but they had a pistachio loaf with a lemon glaze. How delicious does that sound? I got a green tea matcha latte with almond milk. I know, it's so annoying. I know, no sugar. I had to have almond milk because I can't have other milks because of sugar, because of keto. I'm sure, with my luck, that almond milk probably had a boatload of sugar, but it's okay. And, in the latte, it was green, and they made a little heart, at the top. It was so cute. They, they just had the most innovative coffees and cakes, and it was really, really just cute. Again, no table service, serve yourself. It was expensive. My matcha green latte, one size, it was $9. You heard that right. $9 US. It was ridiculous. They also had lavender lattes, which I thought was so cute. Little croissants, muffins. Just loved it. Just thought it was such a cute place. And to boot, if you're in that area and you need to have a meeting place to work quick, one, they had Wi-Fi, loved that. It's hard to find place with Wi-Fi in New York. Two, they a lot of interesting meetings were going on around me. Girls next to me were working at Condé Nast, and I think one was interviewing with the boss, and the boss, so both women. The boss interviewer was probably in her mid-40s, and the girl interviewing was in her late 20s, and and she was just telling them how they work at Condé, and and if you don't know, Condé Nast, home of Vogue, Vanity Fair, and yeah, so it was just an interesting conversation. And one of the things, and by the way, I worked at Condé Nast, right? So I worked at Condé Nast, what year was it? In 2010. I think I worked there in 2010. Not for a long time, only for like 6 months, I think I worked there for. I worked at Condé Nast because I was in digital, I was in digital publishing for my career. That was what I was, digital and tech. And eventually, I moved into finance, but on like client side, but I was in digital and tech. And at the time, Condé Nast, who I loved, I always was like, I always wanted to work there. Of course, Vogue and Anna Wintour and the whole thing, and Andre Leon Talley and the fashion. I just can't. And at the time, this was at a time when every major print publisher around the world was trying to monetize their websites digitally, and I had that skill set because that was all I've done in my career up until that point. I worked for digital startups. I worked for digital publishing companies. I don't want to get into it. So boring. And so Condé, they hired me, and I had nothing to do. Literally, like I had nothing to do. Like it was the strangest thing. I'd go into work and I would have these meetings, with the team, my boss, and it would be all this talk about the magazine and the glossy magazine and, who we are as a brand and brand this. And I would be like, great. Like, and so we have Chase Bank as an advertiser. That's amazing. How do we get Chase Bank to advertise on the website? Or can we split the buy in print with the web? Those are the kind of things I was doing, right? And I apologize if this doesn't really, but I'm giving you the context. And I'll never forget, like, I realized like 4 months, into working there, that I wasn't really hired to work. I was hired almost as just like a figurehead, like just to be like a check mark. Like, yes, we hired a digital expert. We hired a digital executive. Her job is to sit there and go on meetings and talk web jargon. Shall we need it? But there really wasn't any incentives for the team to sell, get advertisers on the website. There wasn't really, and nobody was being compensated in that way. The whole thing was so weird. I started talking to people, not my team or anything. I started talking to other people within the organization. I didn't know. I was confused. And by the way, I was younger, much younger. I don't regret what I did, but sometimes, you got to know when to talk, when to not talk. And I started talking to other people, like other executives. There was a big digital head at the company, very high up, and I had a meeting with him, and I sat him down. I think his name was Jeff or something, and I had said, like, hey, like, would you mind meeting with me? And he said, sure. And we met, and I said, like, what's the deal? And he kind of talked around everything I should have. He talked around all of my concerns. He kind of like said everything I should be doing, but then like talked around the fact that like I wasn't really able to do it. Does that make sense? And yeah, it just didn't work out. And when I told them I wasn't going to be there anymore, they said that was a great idea because they were feeling the same way. And that was at a time when Condé Nast, they came out with this thing called Condé Net, right? And it was like they were trying to silo the company. They were trying to have Condé Nast as a publisher, and they were trying to have Condé Net, like digital. And I was in there. I was probably one of the only people in that entire company that had the skill set that I had. And I know this sounds so crazy. And I was saying to them, Condé Nast, Condé Net, let's just have Condé Nast. Like, oh, you buy, advertising in Vogue, then you also buy advertising on Vogue.com. They didn't even own Vogue.com, the URL at the time. They owned Style.com. It was a whole weird time at that company. But I was there and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so long story short, I shouldn't say that. I should say tangent over. I'm sitting at the coffee shop, Ariston. I'm listening to these two girls talk. And the older girl tells the younger girl that when she had kids, she took a step down from the workplace and she decided to focus on her family. And she said, she was telling, the young girl, I guess the young girl asked, and she said, you only have babies once and you only have children once. And I just felt like, why bother working? Like if my husband was able to afford our bills and whatnot, and I just took that time, and I think it was the right thing that I did for my family and for my kids, and blah blah blah. And I didn't really get when she got back into working, but clearly her kids grew up a bit, and then she started joined the corporate world again. I loved hearing the conversation. I wish I could scooch my chair up more without it squeaking, or I wish I could have said, oh my God, can I jump in even though you're in the middle of an interview? But I didn't do that. I had friends that did that left, and it's saved a lot of their lives, and I didn't. So I'm trying, going back on what I said before, I think I'm going to try to peel back the curtain a little bit. The thing is that was a really traumatic time in my life because I've said it a zillion times, I was working 12 to 14 hour days, and I'm almost sick of saying it. I was traveling, and I was the primary earner of my household. My husband at the time, of course, had a job. He did well, but we lived in Manhattan, and the reason why we lived in Manhattan was because it's just where we met, where we worked. It was easier. We didn't believe in having commutes. We were prioritizing time with the kids. And prioritizing time with the kids, I feel like I was put out to pasture by myself. He did not tell me, oh, you need to work like this. He was actually like, why don't you leave your job? Why don't you step down? We'll go live somewhere cheap. I couldn't see it. I didn't come from money. So when I started making money, I was not going to not make that hay while the sun was shining, right? Like my nanny, she says to me, make the hay while the sun shines. And I swear to God, when I started in to make serious money, I was like, I am off to the races. I am going and nothing is going to stop me. And I just felt like I could really have an opportunity to set up my family, buy a house, houses, set up bank accounts, whatever I needed to do, right? And I did not have any iota, any inkling, thought in my mind that this was going to sabotage my health. There was no way. I am somebody, knock on wood, I don't even have wood. What is this picture frame wood? It's probably plastic. I'm not somebody, I really even hate to say this because I feel like I need to where's the salt? I need to throw it over the head. I'm not somebody that gets sick a lot. Here it goes. I'm going to have norovirus tomorrow. But I'm not somebody that gets sick a lot. So I wasn't thinking if I take on all this work stuff, I'm going to be, drowning. No. I just was bring it to mommy. I can handle it. That was my mentality. But then all these other external factors started happening in my life. One, my father died. If you read my book, you heard about that. My dad was estranged. My parents got divorced. They had a disgusting divorce when I was 17 years old, and my mother banned us from having a relationship with him, she'll say that he didn't want to have a relationship with us. That's actually not true. And I think that over time, decades go by, some people believe the stories that they tell themselves. I know that to be true. And by the way, my father was not an angel. Divorce was disgusting. He did horrible things to her, and he did horrible things to our family. But just as equally horrible things you can do, there are the emotionally equivalent or mentally equivalent horrible things that you can do, right? And I work on that, right? Like in my therapy. But anyway, my parents had a disgusting divorce. My father was estranged. He died. And I didn't get to say any goodbyes to him. Obviously the work stuff. I had the 2 kids, the 17 months apart, 2 C-sections. My ex and I, we just stopped having sex. Like, our sex life just went out the window. And that was traumatic for me, because I'm not somebody that needs that 24/7 anyway, but at all. But for whatever reason, I had like a real desire after my kids started to, like after I had the kids and I was healed from the C-sections, I was like, oh, Stella got her groove back. And, and because we were fighting, because things were really tense, he was like, oh, I'm not in the mood. And I was just like, what? Like, are you kidding? And then there were just other things. I had no child care help and blah, blah, blah. I don't, it's like, I don't like to list, because it sounds like a sob story, but there were so many other things. There was just so many other things. And the thing that I didn't do, I didn't have enough emotional grounding inside myself to ignore all the external things and just focus on my little family. And those external things included work, right? And so at the time, my ex, he suggested that I do stand up, and that's how all that stuff happens. And I was doing other things. I was trying to find little other things that I was interested in. I was taking voiceover lessons. I was like, oh, that'll be fun. Like, because he was like, you should try performing. And I started with voiceover. And then I moved into improv. And then I had an improv teacher who was like, you got to do stand-up. And I was like, stand-up? I have nothing to talk about. And he was like, you what? He's like, you don't shut up. And that's how I got into comedy. But I was burning out, and I didn't know it. And I should also say, one of the other genius things I thought, my ex was a runner, so I was like, oh, I'm going to run the marathon with him. I didn't even run the mile in high school, okay? I was like the fat ass at the back of the line. Like, that was like, I'm not changing for gym. Like, that was, like, I was like, you can give me a Z, I'm not changing. So I also changed for the New York City Marathon in 2017, planned to run it in 2018, and then in 2018 at the end I lost my job, my big job. So, I just totally burned down. I don't know if it was a burnout, a crash, a midlife crisis. I don't know what to call it. But I do know that this thing is so serious, this burnout topic, especially for working moms. And I put this stat up on an Instagram post, 68% of working moms are burnt out. 45%, I think, of working moms, or no, moms, period, are in therapy. I have a stat here. 19 CEOs died on the job last year. 19 CEOs. There's a firm called Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, and they track CEO exits, right, when CEOs exit the company. And CEO burnout is a thing. But, it's like, this is what I think. If you want to have this big career, or if you see yourself having this big career, taking on a lot of responsibilities, dealing with a lot of things, having all the multiple facets in your life going at the same time, a lot of demands, you have to almost become an emotional and mental athlete. Like, your physical body has to be strong. Like, and I know this sounds crazy. This you don't even know how crazy this sounds. I take a giant spoon and a tub of ricotta cheese out of the fridge, and I will eat it by the spoonful. But this is coming from me. You have to be physically strong And then you also have to be emotionally strong and mentally strong. If you want to survive, I should say, and thrive, because you might survive, right? You might survive running around like a chicken without a head, running around, taking on these giant jobs and having families at home and paying bills and managing kids' sports and social calendars and cooking dinners and child care and then anything else life throws at you. You might survive, but are you going to thrive? Are you, I don't know. A lot of CEOs, and big executives, they meditate and da-da. And by the way, when I was in the mix of all of this, I would go to these conferences and I would speak on these roundtables. When I was in my career, I would, speak on these roundtables and these panels. And a lot of the executives would, particularly so I would go, let me say this, I would go to places like the south of France, Vail, Colorado, Palm Springs, California, Los Angeles, lots of ritzy places, staying at the best hotels. And there would be these, full day of, executive level meetings throughout the day where we would trade ideas and strategies for the businesses that we were running. And then in the night, they would have dinners and activities, anything that you would imagine that a corporate almost event has. But the event was not a big event. It was very small. So in the nighttime, for example, we would maybe go for, dinner and then a whiskey tasting. And of course, I was one of the only females, by the way. I have pictures of this, and I was, not only was I one of the only females, I was young, and I had to be undercover Italian. I couldn't be wearing hoop earrings with my name in them. What are you kidding me? I should post a couple pictures. Anyway, so we would talk about, or not me, they, older guys, they would talk about the strategies that they would use to get by. A lot of them, meditate and wake up at 5 a.m, and they're doing this, and how do they stay zen all day, and how do they deliver at home. And listen, this is an issue, and I don't know what it is. But all I do know is self-care has to become more, self-care has to stop being such a fluffy word, because it is fluffy, especially in the middle class, lower to middle class socioeconomic ladder. And look, that is what it is. It's true. If I mentioned self-care to my mother, she's like, self-care? What's self-care? Go wash your hair. You know what I'm saying? What? So it's she wouldn't really say that, but it sounds like it's not, it sounds frivolous. It is the opposite of the immigrant mentality. You work, it's not, but it is important. We're seeing this, and I am trying. And on that self-care note, I did take a little weekend. Let me say, I think I'm going to try to bring this story more front and center. You can feel free, by the way, to let me know if this is something you want to hear from me. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're just like, Elyse, I just want to talk about, regular stuff. I don't want to hear about this. But one thing I need to say is going back to the relatability thing. Sometimes if you see yourself in somebody else, or you're like, wow, that person reminds me of me, or oh, that person reminds me of my mother, whatever. It does change things for you. So if I listened to a podcast when I was having my breakdown, and I was listening to somebody that reminded me of me, or whatever, I think it would have changed a couple things for the better. And by the way, the result of my breakdown was that my marriage was decimated, and I got divorced, and lots of other things that I can't even. Anyway, but I did try to work on some self-care recently. I went to Pennsylvania, just to the Poconos, just a few days, by myself, went with Chris. We had a nice time, went skiing, went to a couple restaurants, just off the grid for the most part, chilled out, very nice. Started reading an old book I had on my shelf. Well, not old, a few years old. Didn't really read it bought it and didn't read it. Gotta check it out. Product of the day. Jim Gaffigan's book. It's called Food, A Love Story. Jim Gaffigan, I love him. I see him almost every week. He's at the club all the time. He'll work out new material. He's not there, and he just pops in, so I couldn't even tell you if he's there, whatever. And he wrote this, and by the way, he's the nicest guy. Oh, and by the way, Jim Gaffigan, you're welcome. The last time I saw him, which was 2 weeks ago, we said hello and blah, blah, and he had to leave to go, take his kid somewhere. And I just thought, I love that. Like, he's just a regular guy. He's just a regular guy, just like I'm a regular lady and you're regular people, and we're just all in this together. And that's the end of that, right? But he wrote this book, Food, A Love Story, and it's just his ideas and thoughts on every possible food item that you can think of. And I love it. I absolutely loved it. Thank you, Jim. It's perfect. By the way, oh my God, speaking of food, let me tell you, wait, I have this keto cookbook next to me. I'm going to make this today. Tell me what you think about it. Okay, so somebody told me there's this cookbook. I'm going to hold it up like as if, like, you're not even, like, it's how ridiculous. The Complete Ketogenic Diet for Beginners. I got it on Amazon. I also am embarrassed to say I bought it used. It was like 10 cents. Actually, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed to say that I buy the books sometimes used. Why should I pay, $14.95 for a book if it says on there it's 2 cents used in extremely good condition? Come on. Anyway, this sounds good. Listen to this. Peanut butter mousse, keto. A 1/4 cup of natural peanut butter, sugar-free, 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, a teaspoon of alcohol-free pure vanilla extract, which I'm just going to use vanilla because I don't even know what that's about. I have vanilla extract from Costco, which, by the way, is delicious, and it's huge, and it's a great value. I recommend Kirkland brand. And in this recipe, 4 drops of liquid stevia. You beat the whole thing together in your blender, your hand mixture. You get Firm Peaks. Oh, I love that. Firm Peaks looks so professional, looks so Food Network, right? And then you spoon the mousse, the peanut butter mousse, into 4 bowls, and you place it in the refrigerator to chill for 30 minutes. This is kind of ish. I think this is going to taste like that other thing I told you about, remember? The whipped cream and peanut butter, like the fluff. I don't know. It says in the thing, it's a scrumptious dessert. Peanut butter can reduce your risk of cancer and heart disease. Natural peanut butter is high in unsaturated fats, blah, blah, blah. Listen, it's keto. It's a dessert. I'm in, okay? I am absolutely in. I don't care. And by the way, they say that on keto you should use almond butter versus peanut butter, but peanut butter is a little more satisfying. What I did the other night is I did the Lily's chips. I told you about those. The Lily's sugar-free chocolate chips. I got them at Whole Foods. They were on sale. They're usually $6.99, I think, for like a 12 or 14 ounce bag. They were on sale for $5.09. Good buy, good sale. I take the Lily's chips and I put them, a few in a little tablespoon of peanut butter. And sometimes I eat that at night because I love Reese's peanut butter cups. I love all that stuff. Anyway, that's it for today. That's my product. That's my food talk. Quote of the day. Quote of the day. Venus Williams. Oh my God, I love those girls. If you haven't seen their documentary, it's so slay. To quote my daughters, so slay, mommy. Okay. You have to believe in yourself when no one else does, and that right there makes you the winner. I'm Elyse DeLucci. This is episode 155. Is it 55 or 54? No, it's 55. Anyway, I'm Elyse DeLucci, the host of New York Talk. Talk to you next time. Love to love you, baby.
I